Martin, I want to get back to what you said about how success still feels like failure. What exactly do you mean?
Well, I was referring specifically to the fact that not only are the financial institutions, particularly the banks, much more profitable again, but of course everybody is now talking about huge bonus payments. And of course the problem for governments is they wanted the financial system to be healthier, they wanted people to feel greater confidence in banks, but now while the economy is still very, very weak across the world, people are losing their jobs, taxpayers are feeling beleaguered, they see people who are working for the financial sector very, very happy, about to receive enormous pay again at their expenses, they feel. So it seems to me that politically, at least, the success that they looked for, the success in recovering a really viable financial system, or something like a viable financial system, feels very much like a failure.
Is there, I mean, Martin, you're clearly taking a global view on banks, but you focus, or the IMF focuses on the European banks. What about when you look at the sort of bifurcation that we've got here? I mean, you have some winners, right, like Goldman Sachs, who are clearly successful, and then some companies like Bank of America, whom Dick Beauvais says are going to need to raise funds again, and that is going to seriously hurt the stock.
Well, of course, exactly the same has happened in Europe. In fact, I've just been looking at this. There are some remarkable successes. Perhaps the most obvious one is Banco Santander of Spain, which has come through and actually has greatly increased its market capitalization. Been no sign of trouble despite very deep difficulties in the Spanish economy. And other European banks, notably, for instance, the Royal Bank of Scotland, which was one of the biggest in the world just a few years ago, is, of course, now 70% government-owned, and nobody knows when it will exit. So again, of course, there are winners and losers, but overall it's pretty clear that there are now, compared with where we were a year ago, far more winners than losers. Overall, the sector has come back in a big way because it's been the recipient of, quite simply, the biggest government rescue in history.
You know, Martin, I want to ask you about Larry Fink, because you're going to be talking with him and you're going to be, you know, on that panel. I'm just curious, you know, what is it you want to know from him at this point?
I suppose how he sees the recovery of the financial system and how far he thinks that we've actually reformed the system, or are we actually just going back into the same sort of mess that we had before? I'm increasingly concerned that because the rescue has been so successful, there has actually been very little regulatory reform so far, very little structural reform. In fact, it's even worse. We've got all these too-big-to-fail institutions, and that we may therefore be heading for even more difficulty in the years ahead as this becomes even more difficult to manage. So as an observer of what's going on, I'd very much like to know whether he feels we've actually learned something from this crisis, or we're well on the way to repeating our mistakes.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Hey, Martin, thank you so much. Martin Wolf, Chief Economics Commentator over at the Financial Times.